Yes, indeed, it's still Sunrise Daily on Channels Television, and we have looked exhaustively, I hope, at Section 8412, the legal implications especially of the appeal court's ruling on that judgment. Now, let's feel the heartbeat of the presidency as we examine what the presidency is thinking, particularly with the directive to appointees to resign, appointees who have presidential ambition and other such ambitions. As we welcome the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media, on Communications, Mr. Garba Shehu. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you for this opportunity. Good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you. So, Mr. Shehu, it would seem that the President is aligning with 8412, regardless of the litigations by the directive to political appointees to resign.
As a matter of fact, when the President spoke in cabinet yesterday, he made no reference to Section 84 or any other law. He simply gave that directive. And I think that it is very clear that as the head of the executive arm of government, in whom executive authority, powers of the Federation resides, he absolutely can direct that this be done and should be obeyed, and that's the position.
But one of the first few reactions to the move by the presidency was that perhaps the directive was selective, since the additional statement read that other political appointees may be asked to resign in the coming days. One would have thought that the law is clear and they didn't have to wait in the first place for a directive from the presidency.
Well, by yesterday evening, the president has okayed the government circular issued and signed and issued by the secretary to the government, which specifically said that beyond the ministers, all heads and the members of extra-ministerial, departments, agencies, parastatals of government, ambassadors, as well as other political appointees who desire to contest for offices, should resign, and that's the position. So this is taken very seriously. The president has appointed 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow to say farewell and thank you to the ministers at the farewell meeting. So it's all done and it's signed, sealed, and delivered.
Include the CBN governor.
I don't want to be dragged into names, especially given all of the things that are happening in court and all of that. Does he consider himself a head of agency or parastatal? Does he consider himself a member of extra-ministerial department? I think that he and his lawyers will determine what is the implication of that for them.
Does the presidency consider the Central Bank of Nigeria as one of those extra-ministerial parts of government that is appointed by the president? Which head is appointed?
Again, I don't want to be dragged into technical details of this sort. The president's directive is clear, conveyed by the secretary to the government of the Federation. If you are a minister, if you are head of government agency or parastatal, or a government or a political appointee, ambassador, and you want to contest for elective office, resign. That's it.
Okay, let me ask it differently. Does it include anyone appointed by the president whose office is tenured?
I think that the decisions will be made by individuals in that place. Where they, on their own, say they will go, it makes things easier for everyone. But if they think that they are entitled to continue in office as they contest for Senate, governor, or minister, president, then that opens it to a further directive, and we expect that clarification will then be issued in due course.
That question, Mr. Shehu, is being asked just to be clear, because there are those who would, as you very well know, being not a lawyer but a journalist yourself, there are those who will be wondering, hey, anyone given the opportunity would want to eat their cake and still have it in their hands. So that's why that question is essential to ask. If you're saying it's every ministry, every department, every agency that is affected, the heads that are affected, who have presidential or any other political elective posts ambition should resign. It just needs to be clear. Already they have a tenured office, that tenure isn't open, and they are asking for another tenure office altogether. So some people would think, hey, this is a no-brainer.
No, I mean, your question is perfectly in order. I don't see anything wrong with it, except perhaps I may not have the answer that you wish to get. We're dealing with a government policy, a government directive, a circular of government issued by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, duly approved by the President, and clearly states who is to go. So I think that if you occupy offices like that, you make the decision by yourself. Otherwise, someone will decide for you. I think that's the point.
Mr. Shehu, with regards to Ayo's question, the concern about by the civil society about the CBN governor's aspiration is that it's rather sensitive, particularly, you know, the offices where sensitive election materials are kept, and of course the impact of his political activity on, you know, the economy, forex to be precise. Is the presidency concerned about all of these concerns expressed by the civil society?
The president is well advised on all of these matters. You would rightly assume, you should rightly assume that senior advisors, chief of staff to the president, secretary to the government, chief economic advisor to the president, and about everyone who is there, they tell the president what is right and what is wrong. And I believe that the president has all of the information at his disposal, and the decision will entirely be made by him. As it is, he has given directives, very wide latitude, covering about everyone. If somebody thinks that the directive has missed their heads, then it is up to them to make the decision to stay or to go. I certainly, again, resist, the pressure, if you like me to say, to be dragged into the single issue of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The president has given his directive clearly stated out, overwhelmingly, wide, latitudinal, and it's for people to place themselves where they think they belong.
All right. In response to the president's directive yesterday, some ministers have resigned. Surely there's a plan for governance after their exit. You said only moments ago that he's planning an exit meeting sort of, or a send forth with the ministers. What's the plan for replacement?
For now, the directive from government is that if you are a minister and you have a minister of state, hand over to the minister of state. If you don't have a minister of state, hand over to the permanent secretary. If you are head of government agency, a parastatal, extra-ministerial government department, or ambassador, hand over to the most senior officer in your department and go.
But there are those of the ministers who are still saying, well, there is latitude to consult with the president in the absence of clarity. I don't know why you find that funny, Mr. Shehu, but is that opening, that lacuna still there for those who have been affected but need clarity from the president to approach him and say, are you serious, sir?
At 10 o'clock, they will have their meeting tomorrow with him. They will say whatever they want to say, but the president is planning, as I said, a farewell meeting and to say thank you to them for sacrificing so much to serve the nation.
In the event that some of them do not resign before Monday, as announced by the Minister of Information and Culture, what happens?
And so then who are you serving? I think that's the point. Who are you serving then? Because the man who put you there says, go. And you say you don't want to go. So you're on your own. I think logically it follows. The president has to be obeyed because he's the appointing authority under the Constitution. He has the authority also to remove. So if anybody thinks that any extraterritorial authority that can sustain them in the office, that would be strange to us. We would like to know what that extraterritorial authority is.
Will such a fellow be sacked, or will the removal of the person be announced by the president?
Don't ask me this question. I think the decision is entirely that of the president. My sense
spokesman, you have told us before that even if the president doesn't speak, you speak on his behalf. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, but I'm also not a mind reader, so I don't read the president's mind. It has to be okay. My point still is that the president appoints and he removes, and he has to be obeyed. And if he says go, go. If you don't go, then somebody will decide for you how you go.
So what if any one of them withdraws their ambition to be anything else, governor, president? Will that person remain in office?
I don't know. Again, it is for the president to decide.
Again, you are the president's spokesman. You should be able to speak for the president.
I know, Ayu. Look, my wish is that the party must keep the money. I hope that the president will not ask because the party needs the money. So you should keep it.
Are you suggesting that if they decide to withdraw their ambitions, the party has to return their money?
My own says, well, the president did this in the case of the chairmanship aspirants. There was a consensus agreement, and the president said, okay, party, I advise you, not that he directed. He advised the party to return money to those who had agreed to the consensus plan. My hope is that knowing how precarious the finances of the party are, my hope, as a personal opinion, is that the party will be asked to keep the money, even where somebody says, no, it was a joke that I just came out and fielded myself as a joke. Keep the money. That's my sense.
Are you saying that it is possible for someone to wake up one morning and make 100 million naira joke, Mr. Garba?
I don't know. But the thing is that given the large field, I think the president himself said 30 candidates for the presidency by yesterday. It's unprecedented. Does any one of these 30 thinks he would be the president in 2023? I think that maybe somebody harbors some doubt that this is not for real. But I don't know. I can't decide for them. I'm just speculating.
And indeed, Mr. Shehu, it's a sea of aspirants. What does the president think about the sheer number of people who are, yearning to take up his job in 2023?
No, he looks at it in the light of their democratic right to aspire to the highest office. He is essentially a Democrat. And the president cannot stand in the way of anyone who says they want to run to be president. They have all gone to him. And I guess the most I can say anyone got is from the president is a certificate of no objection, which is also good because the president will not stand in your way. And we hope they'll go to the field and convince the delegates that they are the best. And the president's position is he will hand over the best to the best. He will to the one that Nigerians want to lead them.
Joe, my colleague talked about 100 million naira joke, and the concern has been expressed earlier on the program about how the aspirants have easily been able to come up with a whopping 100 million naira to purchase expression of interest and nomination forms. How comfortable is the presidency with this, especially with Mr. President's no-nonsense stance towards corruption?
Well, first of all, I was privileged to have been present when this 100 million decision was made. And I know that at first, even among governors and some aspirants in the room, it raised some concerns. But the party did make a case for it. And the national chairman was applauded for this because, look, this is a party that doesn't take money from the treasury. And I think underscore this one. The government and the party chairman did say it, and none of the governors challenged him. You are not funding us. Let's go look for the money we need to run a successful campaign. Now, there's beauty in this. It tells you that the party has taken the sense of accountability and the fiduciary, excellence to a level never seen in the past before. It used to be taken for granted that governors will just draw money from treasury and throw into the coffers of the party. So if the party is complaining that it's not being funded by its governors, that means that the governors are running their economies well and abiding by the rules. So the party then needs to raise enough money to run a good campaign. And the neck of the party applauded the chairman for the thinking, and he was given a free pass. Now the question is, how did they get 100 million and where did it come from? I think that this is a question that should go to each individual aspirant for how did they save all this money or how did they collect it? For your interest, you know that I have seen someone who was yesterday saying he had quit the race after online contributors gave him up to 83 million naira. So it would seem to me that it is not such a difficult task, for people to ask people to donate, and then the money comes in as they open their wallets. So that can be the explanation. In a few cases, we have seen people coming forward to say, this is the group that has bought the form. If you like, go and challenge them, but that's their own claim.
It would also be a question for the presidency as well. If one person has been able to explain how he or they came up with the money, shouldn't the presidency also call for investigations into the activities of others to establish how they were able to come up with a whopping 100 million naira?
I'm not sure that is the way to go because that means that you would expel aspirants from the party. You don't want them to run. I think that this sort of scrutiny is up to largely the civil society and you, the media. Ask questions. Go to them and say, well, so person, you have just been permanent secretary for 2 years and you're able to raise, how did it come from? I mean, that's a fair question and they ought to answer you. But to say that the presidency should launch an investigation, where does that take us to? I don't think that is the right way to go.
But shouldn't that be a question for the presidency as well to ask in the light of the anti-corruption stance of government? I mean, what would have been, it could have been, even if it's a surreptitious question from the ICPC or the EFCC. I mean, let's even imagine for all that it's worth that the president's annual salary is 15 million naira. I mean, going by whatever, even if it's 20 million naira, multiply that by 4. It's not up to 100 million naira form, for instance. So I'm just wondering if those things could occur, shouldn't it be in the spirit of fighting corruption that government should say?
Yeah, I have no doubt that there's no offense when questions are asked. My worry about this is it the president that must do this? I'm saying to you that, you know, the kind of president we have anyway. If ICPC or EFCC would say, Mr. Permanent Secretary, where did you get this money from after just a 1 year tenure in office? This president will not stop them. That I can assure you. And as I said, it is just the ICPC and the media also have a duty to ensure accountability to the public. And these are questions that are legitimate if they are asked. But to rest everything and say nobody does their own work, it's only the president who would now flag the issue. And that I think is the problem that I have.
Those who will say that will be speaking to body language. But speak to the 2023 election, the preparations for it, the build-up to it, and all of that. You know, there are those who have been 2023 election to be or not to be in the light of all kinds of insecurity issues being raised, all kinds of political permutations, all kinds of unrest here and there. Well, we may have a bit of a rest on that for now. How long that lasts is another question to ask. So, and we all know, it's something that you have also spoken to before, that if there is no security, people may not have the confidence to come out to vote. In Imo State, you are aware of some people going to get registered to vote, and then they were attacked, seeing to the killing of an INEC official. So there are questions around how government is looking at that to ensure confidence, the confidence of the voter in going out to get registered and to vote eventually, especially in the light of insecurity.
Well, the issue of security is central to the role of government and is the number one issue for this administration as far as we are concerned. And I think that it is only fair that we must not continue to pretend to believe that nothing is happening about it. We'll be making the points. People don't want to look at the Northeast. It was the epicenter of all of this crisis, terrorism. Where are we today? Today, communities that have been vacated for years, 7, 8 years or more, people are moving back to the communities and resuming their own lives. That is some progress. Now, where we are in the North Central, the farmer had fights, the killings have ground to nearly zero. They've been tackled. The policy of government has challenged all of these things and put in place mechanisms that states are adapting to their own situations. You know, the livestock, plans that the administration has put in place. It has changed so many things. And we are making enormous progress against the bandits and the terrorists that are Northwest and some parts of Central States. It's not over, it is ongoing, but this is not to say that there should not be election. There is insecurity that is physical that we see, we know, and we admit, and is being tackled. And the president's assurance is that things will be dealt with and that the country would have that sense of security you're talking about. But there is insecurity of the mind that some of it deliberately orchestrated for reasons to achieve political ends. Nobody can do anything about that if the people are determined not to live in peace, or some political actors think that the only way to power in 2023 is through the generation of arson and murder and the senseless killings. They will continue to do against, they will continue to swim against the tide. And whatever efforts the administration is making, they will continue to thwart this thing, because the political objective is, this is our passport. This is the passage that will take us to power in 2023. So what happened? Look at you mentioned Imo State, sad and all of the unfortunate things that had happened. But we had an election in Anambra, and adjudged as one of the most credible elections. Our party didn't win, APGA won. But it was held amidst all of these fears that people were saying. There would be insecurity, there will be violence, there will be...
Mr. Shehu, I'd like to quickly come in there. Insecurity is as pervasive, beyond even the eastern region. But let's leave that. There's a very big concern gnawing at the hearts of many Nigerians, which is the continuing ASUU strike. How concerned is the presidency?
This morning, the president has directed the chief of staff to convene a meeting of ASUU and those ministries representing government. And in attendance will be the Sultan of Sokoto and the Secretary General of the Christian Association of Nigeria. If you remember, not quite long ago, the leadership of the Nigeria Interreligious Council, co-chaired by Khan and the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, came to the president and said, we are ready to intercede in this matter, to cause a resolution. Now, the president has given his consent. The president's wish is students ought to be in the classroom, not on the streets. Teachers ought to be in the classroom, not on the streets. So we want all of them to be back in the classroom. And this matter would be discussed today, and we are hoping, pray for us, that there's a breakthrough.
Beyond the discussion, will ASUU get at least a part of what it's asking for? Some of the revitalization funds or earned academic allowances?
I guess a number of concessions are required on both sides. And the government, I think, has been offering, one thing and another. And maybe also ASUU themselves need to tone down some of this. When you consider this, actually, this is more of a liability inherited by the administration. You're talking about an agreement that was signed 2009. If the government then that signed this agreement did not deem it fit, did not have the capacity to implement, it then means that they had lied to us and they were not fair to the nation. And now they have imposed a hardship that has continued to recur. Every now and then, strike about ASUU. Most issues will be resolved. 2009 agreement is the big issue.
All right, Mr. Shehu, we have completely run out of time. Thank you very much. We hope that beyond the age of the agreement, government is also concerned about the decay in tertiary education. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President on Media and Publicity. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
All right, a quick look at some of your own messages before we call it a morning. Brown Ogu is talking about trivialities. It seems to always draw so much drama in our dear country. It is explicit that political appointees seeking elective positions resign. All these are simply distractions from germane issues of insecurity, poverty, ASUU strike, poor healthcare, and brain drain. Well, he just spoke to that.
Absolutely. Professor Imonoka Enakena speaks on cost of nomination forms, and he says EFCC must investigate all those contesting for presidential elections, especially the appointees, deluding us that friends raised 100 million naira for them to buy forms. Who are these donors? What's their source of income?
Olagunjo Oladele says there's always a controversy every time the law interacts with politics. The law reflects the wishes of the dominant class in society. The judiciary is almost contributing to a burdening society. In the end, any law that goes against the Constitution is invalid.
Very good way to put it. El Dajo says, destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and collapse of education sector.
He that has an ear, let him hear. Well, that's the show this morning. Thanks so much for being a part of our day and for allowing us to be a part of yours. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
And I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now.